this video, we're going to compare the Honda Civic Type R and the new one to the Golf R, and I'm going to let you know which one I would buy based on some of the performance and obviously the design here as well. So first, let's start with the spec and tech of these two cars. The Honda Civic Type R is powered by a turbo 2-liter inline-4. It makes 315 horsepower. This is the most powerful Civic yet, but it only comes with front wheel drive only. I'm sure they figure out the front differential so that it doesn't do a lot of torque steering, but still I would like to have some power going to the rear. 0 to 60 is done in about 4.9 seconds. You get it with a 6-speed manual transmission, and the price is $43,990. Now the Golf R, all-wheel drive, and I love that about the Golf. It has the same power, 315 horsepower from a 2-liter inline-4 turbo. So similar engine to the Civic R, very similar. 0 to 60, I think thanks to the traction of 4-wheel drive, is 4.7 seconds, so 0.2 seconds quicker than the Civic. And you also have something called, which I love, this drift mode, and that means you can send 100% of the power to the rear wheels, and you can have it in a manual or automatic transmission. It's about $2,000 more expensive than the Civic Type R at $45,385. So let's jump in and have a look at these two beauties of hatchbacks. First of all, thanks to Honda and Volkswagen for designing or manufacturing these cars today, because these are type of cars that are slowly being phased out in favor of electric vehicles, as you know. So I'm really grateful that they decided to put these two out. Look at the Honda Civic here. I just love this design, and comparing this, the reason why I love it so much is because we compare it to the previous generation. This is like night and day. Honda decided, okay, we're not gonna make any fake vents in the front end all over the place that like we have in the previous generation, and over styling as well. We're gonna make a clean Honda Civic with functional air intakes. You can see that there is no fakeness going on anywhere, either in the top part of the grille, which is all functional, and you can even see the radiator here in the lower part. I love that about the Honda Civic. I think it's a gorgeous looking design and a huge step forward from the previous generation, which I wasn't really a fan of just because of the complete overstyling and fake vents all over the place. Looking at the Golf here, same thing here. Golf, you know, they have this tradition of evolution over revolutionary styling. You can definitely see that here. We have some very squinty headlights in this generation. I feel like maybe it's sloping backwards a little bit too much. I kind of want to bring it up more into an angle compared to the in relation to the ground here, and not have this very steep angle starting very low from the bumper going up. But it's still a very clean design. I love this blue color as well, and of course there's no fake vents in a Volkswagen right here. We have the opening in the lower part. We also have a little slot right here where air can creep in and cool the engine. So both of these cars, very clean design, and I think it's a design that's suitable for 2023, because we've reached the overstyling kind of tendencies 5 years ago, and now pretty much every single manufacturer are dialing it back and going back to a much more cleaner and simpler design, focusing on graphic design to build the identity of the brand instead of having creases and fake vents all over the body of the car. Now looking at the side view, I think this is the most interesting part right here. They're both 4-door coupes, I guess you could say, or hatchbacks. We have the Honda Civic up here stretching way further back and have more of a coupe roofline than the Golf down here, but we still have a super clean design. We have this nice shoulder line going from the front end into the corner of the taillight, and we have this line in the bottom as well going into the bumper right here. Nice line flow all over this car. Clean looking wheels as well. I love this black wheels on white cars. I think that's pretty much the only time I would consider having black wheels is if I had a white car. I think that contrast looks really cool. And then we have the red Brembo brakes hiding here behind the black spokes. Another detail I love about the Civic Type R is this wing. It's a massive wing. I think this is one of these details that really shows that this is still, even though it is a very clean, polished up design compared to the previous generation, it's still a Type R. And I think this wing kind of symbolizes that they didn't forget what this car actually is. Looking at the Golf, same thing here, super clean lines and graphics. This is typical Volkswagen, where every single design feature needs to have a purpose. That's their whole design philosophy when they're styling cars. And one specific graphic detail of the Golf that's a huge part of the identity of Golf is this thick C-pillar right here. This part has been around with Golf since the inception of the first generation by Giugiaro, and I love that. I love this shape of hatchbacks. This looks a lot more like a typical hot hatchback than the coupe-like Civic, but they're still very cool designs in their own ways. So if you wanted to sketch a Honda Civic Type R or a Volkswagen Golf, they're pretty different, even though they're in the same type of category when it comes to cars. So they both have the same type of wheelbase, I would say, the proportions being completely different, with the Honda Civic being more of a coupe-looking style with a pretty flat hood, and then we have the roofline starting pretty early as well, and then going down and dipping down in a coupe-like fashion, something like this. And obviously we need to put out the big wing in the rear end. Graphics in the rear goes something like this, creating a nice bumper in the rear, and a pretty decent looking sporty design compared to the Golf, which looks still like a regular Golf. Now, if we were to sketch out the Golf in a similar way, I would start by just adding two boxes like this, because that's pretty much what the Golf is. We have one box in the rear being the bigger box, and then what I would do is just to create some nice curvatures here. And also we need to think about how the rear end ends compared to the Honda Civic up here, which is in a more sloping, direct end point in the rear end. So there we have it, two completely different designs in the same category of car. If I were to pick one of these just based on the side view, I'm definitely gonna go with the Golf, because I love this styling of a hatchback over the coupe-like hatchback of the Civic. Before we continue, I'm excited to let you know that we just launched our brand new metal artwork series on the sketchmonkey.com. These glossy metal pieces of art will stand the test of time while remaining easy to clean. Perfect for your garage, office, man cave, or as a gift for someone who loves cars just as much as you do. Want me to make you a custom-made painting of your car for print? I'm opening up a few spots in the coming months. Just click the link below to learn more. And these come in 6 different sizes, from 8 by 10 inches all the way up to 24 by 36 inches. So go to thesketchmonkey.com or click the link in the description to order yours. Looking at the rear view, two gorgeous rear ends in this case with no fake vents anywhere, and very interesting position of the tailpipes. This is like Ferrari 458 style tailpipes, or inspired by it, 3 centered like this. I think it looks really cool. And here you can see the massive wing, which looks functional. It doesn't look tacky. It doesn't look like a cheap wing. This looks like it actually has a purpose. And what I love about the styling of this wing is that this curvature up here follows the exact curvature of the body of the car. So it kind of duplicates itself and creates a proper dual wing setup in the rear end, with this ducktail being integrated in the body. And look at this gorgeous shoulder line going into the corner of the taillight right here. One thing I kind of would want to change in this case is the LEDs. So they kind of fade in as further to the center the LED stretches. It fades out here a little bit, and it doesn't connect in the middle. We do have an LED right here in the middle, but there's a clear separation where the cut line is of the LEDs. What I would like to have is one single LED, just add the trend of the decade, which is a light bar in the rear end. Just add it here and not have it be so randomized with the light. So we have it fading here, and then we have big cut lines between the bar in the middle and the side bars. I want to have one single clean bar. I think that would help the design, because the rest of the car is so clean and so refined that I think they could do something similar with the tail end graphics of the Honda Civic Type R. Looking at the Golf, the typical hatchback design right here, we have a completely different approach to the tailpipes. For example, we have 4 quad tailpipes down here in a very traditional position. I love this design. I think the height of the lower end graphics and the subtle changes they made to the R makes a big difference, and it doesn't overtake like it does in the new WRX, for example, where the diffuser goes up to this point and just is a big piece of black plastic. In this case, the diffuser is super subtle, but at the same time original for, or unique for, the Type R. And you can tell by just looking at the rear end that this is not just your average Golf. I also like that these are chrome pipes, because it contrasts well with the black diffuser while not taking up too much visual real estate. So they played around with the graphics to make this area look special, but not too much intruding on the original design of the Golf, if that makes sense. And we have the shoulder line here as well going into the taillights. And one detail I love is this chamfer going in. So we have the shape of the taillight going like this, and then it continues into the bumper and creates this nice looking solid chamfer, sharp looking chamfer in the bottom of the car. And we have this spoiler, which also adds a lot of sportiness to this specific R. I love this design. Last but not least, let's have a look at the interior, and then I'm gonna let you know which one I would pick based on the design and some of the performance as well. So looking at this is $2,000 cheaper than the Golf. And I think you can tell by looking at the interior that the Civic is the cheaper car. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It might have to do with the styling of, for example, this looks very squarish, while here it looks a little more premium with the different thicknesses and different radiuses. And the cut lines, for example, the dash going into the door feels a little less refined in the Honda Civic. But what I love about both of these interiors is, look at what we have behind the steering wheel. We have a digital gauge cluster, which is 100% customizable in the Civic and the Golf R, but we have a nice housing for it. This is exactly what I want to see in today's cars. We can still have the digital gauge cluster be digital, obviously, but make it separate and make it integrated in a nice cozy way in the big dash like we have in both of these cars. Looking at the steering wheel for the Honda Civic looks a little more simple than it does on the Golf. I like both of these steering wheels. It looks like we have some Alcantara right here wrapping around the steering wheel, and some regular looking steering wheel on the Golf R, which has a flat bottom here, as you can see, adding to the sportiness of this car. But we also have the housing in the Golf for the gauge cluster, and look at how beautifully this line goes from the gauge cluster and then fades into the dash. This is one of these details that I love about interiors. Have some styling in it. I think the interiors can probably be a little bit more in the over-styled section than the exteriors of cars, because the interiors are supposed to be more decorative, if that makes sense. And I think both of these are doing a great job with that. But if I were to pick one of these interiors to sit in for a long road trip, it's gonna have to be the Golf. I just love the premium feel that you see in the Golf interior with this manual transmission. Would you have a manual, obviously, in the Civic as well, but it just feels a little bit more refined in the interior. So the pick for me between these two cars, I think there are two really cool and great performance cars for a reasonable price. But if I were to buy one, I'm gonna have to go with the Golf, simply because we have the 315 horsepower, but we also have all-wheel drive, and we have the drift mode, which means that I can send 100% of the power to the rear wheels. In addition, we also have a little more premium looking interior. So for me, if I were maybe 10 years younger, I would probably go with the Honda Civic Type R, which I still love. But now, today, if I were to buy one, I'm gonna have to go with the Golf R.